Hi there. I'm Atul Raghunathan, the CTO of Hyperbound. So a little bit about myself and my co-founder, Sri Harsha, right? Who's in the audience right over there, by the way. I'm an ML engineer who's been researching the fundamentals of natural language processing and large language models for over 5 years. I've worked at Amazon Search and more recently a part of the Instagram ranking system and also at Meta Ads. My co-founder, Sri Harsha, has worked at Salesforce Einstein and was a founding engineer at a fellow Y Combinator startup. So enough about us, right? What do we do at Hyperbound? Hyperbound is an AI marketing engine that sits on top of your current outbound stack. It generates personalized emails without the need for human review, and it organizes them into experimental groups to learn more about your interaction with your customers. If you've ever used Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, you know that those ad models know everything about you. Hyperbound uses a similar strategy to improve your response rates by learning what makes each individual B2B buyer convert and sending them a personalized email with the best messaging and value prop possible. Think of Hyperbound as an automated custom experimentation AI for your outbound that understands the specifics of your product, your company, and industry, and goes way further than A/B testing to target each buyer on an individual level. We turn your emails and your first-party CRM data into intelligence about each B2B buyer, and we use that to generate emails that actually convert. So what is our product and what does it look like? Let me go ahead and show you. So this is Outreach. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Outreach before, especially if you're in the marketing world. So Hyperbound is built for these large marketing teams, like those who use Outreach, specifically those selling B2B technical products. We work best at these large teams by generating thousands of marketing emails in a single click and entirely on autopilot. We integrate with your CRM and your favorite sales enablement tools, like Outreach over here, and we guarantee quality by building custom modeling and segmentation around your customers' messaging and ICPs. When speaking to marketing and sales managers, we realized how important it was to make this workflow absolutely seamless for their BDRs. Our goal is to make the UI so seamless and so integrated into the BDR workflow that they would have no interruption. One head of growth even told us that their ideal UI for them was the Staples Easy button. So there's no fiddling around with prompts. There's no understanding of ML or data science. It just works. Let me show you how our product looks like on the customer side. So let's say that I've gone ahead and created a sequence over here. This is really funny. So Hyperbound is a outbound company, right? We build an outbound tool. We have not sent a single outbound email so far because we've been getting so much inbound. So I went and I onboarded us onto Hyperbound today for the first time. But anyway, I created a list of leads that we might reach out to if you were sending outbound. And let me open up Hyperbound. So our sequence should pop up. There it is, Hyperbound sequence. It's inactive because we haven't even connected a mailbox. We're not even sending anything. But if I'm to go ahead and generate emails to all 94 of these people, right? Just wait a couple seconds. Hyperbound will run a bunch of math in the background to understand who everyone is, what they should send to them, and should be ready to go. So great, we're in. So let's take a look at what Hyperbound has done. So when you generate 1,000 emails with Hyperbound, you can trust them. Hyperbound consumes all the same onboarding materials a BDR does when learning about your company. The custom model that we build uses strong natural language processing guardrails and it doesn't hallucinate, which is very different from just throwing everything into ChatGPT. It always preserves your value prop and a feedback procedure with our SDR managers to make sure we take into account all their preferences. So for Megumi over here, she is our first prospect in the sequence. We gently acknowledge her role here as a BDR manager. We'll never say it directly because we've found that turns people off. Then we'll mention her side job as a freelance photographer. We'll then pull in some first-party data from our CRM down here. So we've noticed that one of her BDRs, Kylie, has attended one of our recent webinars. And then we'll let her know. We'll lean heavily on the similarities here, right? So we'll say we're not think of us as an AI lens. Like we'll try to make a strong link in between Megumi's product and ours. And I'll get why we're doing that. I'll get to why we're doing that a little bit later. Notice that we also do the same for Emily down here. So we're leaning really heavily into the similarities. We're talking about, much like how you've done this, just like you've used technology here, similar to how you streamlined operations at ClinicMind. However, let's take a look at some slightly different messaging. There should be a Joe down here. There you go, Joe. So with Joe, we don't focus on similarities. We get straight to the point. We go straight to, we build intelligence for your outbound AI. We just have one small line about some similarities. And our value prop here is really short. Our call to action here is really short. But now let's check out this email to Anthony, who is a AE. The value prop for him is very different than the value prop that you saw in those previous emails. The value prop here is about his promotion. So we've segmented off Anthony as a different type of prospect than those sales managers, those marketing managers, and we're now talking to him about what he needs to do to get promoted. So we also have the short call to action down here, versus for Emily and Megumi up there, we have these longer call to actions. Similarly, some of these emails, like this one, have a PS line, and some of them don't. So, why are these emails different, right? Why is each one of these emails different? It's because each one of these emails represent minute variations in messaging that Hyperbound is using to gather data about your users. Kind of like an ad model. So if you've ever used Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, right, they're collecting a lot of information about how you interact with each piece of their content. In the advertising world, the ad tech world, we call that impressions, and it's similar in the marketing world. We're generating those impressions for the first time using email data. So let me pop back into the slides and show you what exactly this looks like. I've always wanted to show a relatively meaningless graph in front of a large audience, so here I am. But this clustering is actually really important to Hyperbound. So based on public features, private CRM data, and past email response data, our proprietary embedding, Hyperbound divides the list of contacts that you saw in that outreach sequence into these groups. The groups are denoted by the colors. So due to these similarities, Hyperbound hypothesizes that each person in the group will respond similarly to the same type of message. Next, Hyperbound tests multiple different styles of messaging within each group. That's kind of what I was referencing earlier by showing you how each piece of messaging is different. All of those top 10 emails are part of the same group. They're part of the blue group over here. And it divides this blue cluster into those further experimental groups to test different variations of personalization information, email length, value proposition, tone, time in between follow-ups, and call to action. Next, Hyperbound needs to validate the assumption that it made to understand that each person in the group will respond similarly. So for the next batch of emails, it'll send everyone in the same group similar types of messaging. Hyperbound constantly learns and updates these assumptions to make sure that your outbound only gets better with time and never goes stale. There's multiple types of experimentation and learning going on here. We're trying to figure out who's similar to who and what messaging to send to each person. Every time an email is sent, we learn from the impression signals that we collect. We learn the number of times an email was opened, the content of the response we got, the sentiment of the response, the length of the response, whether there is no reply, the amount of time it takes to get a reply, and so many more. This type of alternating optimization problem, switching between figuring out who is similar to who and what type of messaging to send to people, is something that every big tech company is deeply familiar with in their advertising stack. If you've ever used Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok ads, you know how quickly it learns everything about you and your preferences, and this is a little window into how it works. Hyperbound brings the core backbone of that advertising AI tech into the world of marketing, and we're personally really incredibly excited about what a transformation this is going to make. Yeah, that's all I have from our demo. One of the things that we do, which is very different from our competitors, is that we build a custom model for you. So we'll understand your company's messaging, your value prop, and build a custom AI model that handles experimentation, but also handles the email personalization. At the end of the day, we built this company because we were dissatisfied with the quality of personalization that Reggie and Lavender put out, and we knew that we could do better. So here we are. we start off with a heuristic, right? So whatever the sales team has gathered so far is the assumptions that we begin with. So out of the gate, it's not bad. But typically after we've seen around 10,000 emails with responses from your organization, which might take a month or two, depending on the amount of emails you're sending out, we'll start to get a clearer picture of who's similar to who, and what type of messaging to send. That's the information that we can use to generate those mental models that are going to improve your response rate. We don't generate landing pages at the moment, but we're capable of, pointing you to personalized landing pages. The nice part about us building that custom email algorithm and writing essentially custom modeling code for each of our customers is that we're able to accommodate interesting requests that are super domain specific. And that's another gap that we've identified is not really being properly addressed at the moment. The way that we think about this at Hyperbound is that we work with only like mid-market to larger companies. We're not working with companies who are pre-PMF. And that gives us at least some degree of certainty that these companies care about their reputation. And when you care about your reputation, you tend not to spam the entire world. It's an interesting ethical consideration that I think a lot of AI companies in the space are going to have to take a hard look in the mirror about. We do handle very similar things to Crystal Knows. What we've found is a little bit different than the way that Crystal Knows thinks about it. Is Crystal Knows thinks about it in terms of explainable to human concepts, right? They're thinking like, how can I label this so that a human can then go in and fix it and understand? We've understood that abstracting it away to a higher dimension where it's just an embedding that an AI can understand allows you to make a lot more intricate, minute improvements in messaging that you wouldn't necessarily be able to encapsulate with some human explainable term. So it's the difference between identifying and doing, I would say. Email deliverability is a huge, huge concern in the world of outbound, especially now that spam filters are getting better and better. The way that we have got around this problem, and it's kind of given away for free to us, is we really don't have to deal with this. We're working with only larger companies who already have scaled up outbound pipelines. We're not really even noticeably increasing their outbound volume. We're just taking their templated outbound volume and converting it to highly personalized volume. That allows us to send the same amount of emails and avoid even more spam filters because each email is different from one another. So it is a huge concern, but not something we currently plan to address. This is a crowded space, and we recognize that. We built this mainly because we wanted to get around the manual review constraints of some of those other tools. Like they make you manually check off each email, and we really did not appreciate that. Right? We wanted to build something that was reliable enough to go off on autopilot. So with regard to that, right, I know we're significantly better than the competition because we're essentially sitting there building custom models for each of our customers. With regard to the efficacy of the response rates, that's in progress right now. We launched just a month ago, so we're pretty new. We should be getting our first batch of results around next week, so we're eagerly anticipating that. That is actually the thing we're most excited for about this product, so I thank you for asking this question. Same with the ad tech world, right? Once you generate this mental model of who each of your users or buyers or anything is, you're able to then translate that across mediums. We believe that email is the best medium for collecting this data for companies, just because it's the highest volume medium and the easiest way to gather impressions. But we're really looking forward to expanding this out to posts, to messaging, versus for if you wanted to send a LinkedIn Connect message, or if you wanted to send an SMS or WhatsApp, or looking forward to that, to call scripts, to video. So there's a lot of potential here. It's just you need to collect the data, and there needs to be enough of it first. we think emails are the best way. Automation for email responses is a lot easier than people think to implement, and this has only been possible for around like the last 6 months. The reason is, and here, let me just explain to you the scaffolding of like how a solution would work for the email response automation space. There are, on average, for each outbound pipeline, around 20 types of responses that you can get. And this is a very comprehensive, covering everything from asking for more information to telling you they're not interested, to unsubscribing, to, like asking very specific questions. And every company has around these 20 types of responses. Now with ChatGPT, with large language models, it's really easy to build a classifier for those responses to understand like which of those 20 buckets you fall in. And from there, it's really easy to shoot off a canned response. It's also really easy to understand if you don't fall into one of those 20 categories to then pass it off to a human. So that's something that is fairly easy to implement and will be a product offering of ours at some point. But currently not in the works for at least 6 months. At minimum, we're expecting a 2x increase in response rate. That's what the research has shown for the type of personalization that we're putting in. But it really depends per industry, right? Some industries already are sending mostly personalized emails, while others are just spamming everyone with the worst templated emails. So, like for example, industries that do even less segmentation will benefit more from this personalization than those who are doing like very segmented like emails where only hundreds of people are falling into each microsegment. So very domain specific. That's why we do pilots for all of our customers. But it's around the range of 2x. The other thing that we address for those larger companies, and one of the things that they've found, especially those mature ones, is that their outbound pipeline stops working every 2 months. Whatever like trick or hack that they've used to boost their response for the past 2 months eventually gets tired. It gets overused by other people in the industry. All the SDRs are kind of thinking the same thing, and then it falls. So then they have to go rescue their outbound. They got to hop back in, change it up. That's something that our algorithm handles automatically. That's just a different approach to how you handle a stale outbound. We currently integrate with, we integrate with Apollo, with Outreach, with SalesLoft, and every large CRM. So we integrate with Salesforce, with HubSpot, with Zoho, Freshworks. Basically, about 90% of these mid-market enterprise customers use. Currently, for those unsupported integrations, we offer essentially just data exports. We'll send you a CSV, and you can send us the output of how the emails did. But yeah, right now, just those 6 major ones. The way that we handle that is through our data providers. We're essentially gathering this information from data providers who do comply with all the regulations. And they, for example, if they have to comply with the EU right to forget request, we will know about that because their record will disappear, and we will correspondingly delete their record in our system as well. Our product hasn't yet been implemented in an ABM use case. We've done mostly, one-on-one emails. It is something that we plan on implementing. With an ABM, essentially what you have to do is you need to share information between the embeddings, about a certain company. That will essentially tune your model to learn faster for that company that you're reaching out to. It's definitely something that's in the roadmap, something we're pretty excited to implement, but we need one of our customers to follow an ABM approach so we can learn more about it.